After one woman's grandfather vanishes during a full moon, she uncovers a horrifying legacy that links her family to a monstrous truth. I'm Mr. Midnight Hollow, your terrifying host. If you're already part of our pack, your support means the world to us. Each like, comment, and share helps uncover more stories like this. Or subscribe to see what rises from the depths of darkness and unfolds before you. Now, let's begin. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A city caught between heat and decay, where the air smelled of wet dirt and exhaust, and the night stayed thick even in October. Most people in the city never noticed what crept beyond the swamps and pine thickets. They were too busy, too distracted. But some families knew better. Some families had kept quiet for generations because they understood one thing: certain things can't be explained. Only survived. June Calloway wasn't supposed to stay in Baton Rouge. She had plans: a nursing degree, a job offer in Dallas, even an apartment lined up. But everything changed when her grandfather got sick. Not the coughing kind of sick, not hospital sick. It was something deeper. Like his body had started giving up, but his mind was already gone, locked in some war she couldn't see. He'd raised her after her parents died. A quiet man named Samson Calloway, who kept an old trailer just outside the city, behind a curtain of oaks and Spanish moss. He never talked much, never watched TV, but he kept the shed locked, always carried a pocket knife, and nailed crosses above every window. When June moved back in, she found the place just like she remembered. Except now, the woods felt different, too quiet, too still. That first night, she heard something. It came from the tree line behind the shed. Slow movement, heavy. The dogs next door went silent, tails tucked, no barking, just trembling. She opened the door halfway, stared into the darkness, and something stared back. Two eyes, low to the ground, reflecting the porch light like glass marbles, and then gone. The next morning, she found claw marks on the side of the trailer. Not scratches, gouges, like someone had dragged a rake made of knives across the aluminum siding. 5 feet up, too high for a raccoon, too deliberate for any kind of accident. When she showed Samson, he didn't act surprised. He just poured himself a glass of whiskey at 9 a.m. and said, "It's back." "What's back?" she asked. He didn't answer. Just walked to the shed and unlocked it for the first time in 15 years. Inside, the walls were lined with weapons. Not guns, but modified tools. Machetes sharpened like scalpels, bear traps laced with silver wires, jars of what looked like crushed herbs and metal shavings. On one table lay a thick, leather-bound book, marked with initials, S.C. "You never told me about this," she said, running her fingers across the spine. "You wouldn't have believed it." "Try me." Samson sat down, breathing hard. His skin looked thinner than it used to. His voice cracked more when he talked. "There's a thing in these woods. Comes back every 10, maybe 15 years. Always during the blood moon cycle. It hunts. Always has. I've tracked it since '79. June felt something shift in her stomach. "I thought it was just stories," she said. "No story leaves claw marks on metal," he replied. Over the next 2 weeks, things got worse. 4 people went missing on the edge of East Baton Rouge Parish. A deputy, a delivery driver, a teenager who took a shortcut home through the woods, and finally, a hunter whose campsite was found torn to pieces. No bodies, just blood. Bones cracked in half. Footprints that started human and turned into something else. June started reading the book, her grandfather's journal. It wasn't full of myths. It was documentation, sketches of claw shapes, pages of moon cycle calculations, entries that detailed past hunts and deaths. "Use silver," one entry read, "not for magic, for damage. It can bleed. If it bleeds, it can die." By the third week, Samson's condition worsened. He barely ate. Spent most nights sitting by the window, watching the woods, shotgun across his knees. On October 27th, during a record-high 89-degree heat wave, the blood moon rose over Baton Rouge, and Samson didn't come inside. June found the back door open. The shotgun gone. A trail of footprints led into the woods. She followed them for 2 miles, and at the edge of the creek bed she found his hat. Next to it, a pool of blood. Something had been dragged away. She found pieces of clothing and a severed finger. No body. June didn't scream. She stood there, frozen, heart racing, the heat pressing down on her chest like a weight. When she looked up, she saw it. A silhouette, 30 feet away. At first, it looked like a man, but it was too wide, too tall. It moved unnaturally, shoulders hunched, arms too long. It turned toward her, and even in the shadows she saw its eyes. Not animal eyes, human, but wrong. June ran. She didn't stop until she reached the trailer, locked every door, turned off every light, and sat with the book in her lap, flipping through pages with shaking hands. At the very end, a final entry. If I don't come back, it's your turn. You know what to do. June stared at the page for a long time. Then she stood, walked to the shed, and chose her weapons. June didn't sleep after that night. She spent hours rereading every line of Samson's journal, hands stained with dust and dried blood. The book smelled like old sweat and metal. It was filled with diagrams, notes, and instructions. Not stories, but strategies. Pages outlined what to carry, where to strike, how to build traps. There were names, too. Names of people in Baton Rouge who were suspected. Most were dead. Some simply disappeared. One had the word "turned" written next to it, underlined in red ink. She stopped at one entry that chilled her. If you see its eyes and it doesn't run, it already knows who you are. The following night, she prepped the house. She lined the doorways with salt and powdered silver, nailed crosses into the windows like Samson had. She boiled crushed wormwood and left it simmering in bowls across the trailer, just like the book described. The smell was bitter and harsh, but it was supposed to repel them, at least according to Samson. Then she checked the weapons. She took the old .30-30 rifle and loaded it with homemade silver rounds. Each bullet was molded from melted coins Samson had collected, carved with crude etchings, crescent moons, crosses, initials. She strapped a large combat knife to her thigh and tucked smaller blades in her boots. A flashlight, backup batteries, rope, flare gun. Her hands moved with quiet efficiency. No hesitation. By midnight, the woods had gone quiet again. She stepped outside. The night was thick with fog, the air sticky and warm even though it was late October. The moon was red again, high and full. Everything smelled like wet copper and pine needles. She walked slowly, boots sinking slightly into the soft, uneven dirt. A mile into the forest, the silence broke. It started with a low rustle, fast, rhythmic. Then the sound of something big moving through the underbrush, not running, stalking. June ducked behind a large cypress and raised the rifle. Her breath slowed. She waited. Branches cracked, heavy breathing, close, too close. She turned and fired. The shot echoed like thunder through the trees, and something screamed. Not a human scream, not an animal cry. It was something in between, something that had once been human, but wasn't anymore. She didn't wait to see the body. She ran. The creature crashed through the trees behind her, fast, unrelenting. She could hear claws scraping bark, could feel the tremors in the ground with each of its steps. Whatever she hit, it didn't die. It just got angrier. She reached an old dried-up riverbed and dove behind a fallen log. The beast stopped at the top of the ridge, 30 feet above her. She saw it clearly now. It stood on 2 legs but moved like a predator, back arched, head low. Its fur was black and matted, stretched over a body too long for its bones. The face looked like it had once belonged to a man. The mouth still held a shape, but it was filled with teeth that didn't belong. Its arms hung low, fingers ending in thick claws, dripping with dark blood. Its head turned slowly toward her and smiled. June froze. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her fingers gripped the rifle tighter, but her muscles refused to listen. The thing stepped forward. Suddenly the log she hid behind splintered. A massive claw slashed through the wood, missing her by inches. She rolled out of the way, raised the rifle, and fired again. The shot hit its side. More blood, more rage. The beast lunged. June fell backwards, scrambling down the bank. It followed, crashing through branches and mud, teeth bared. She fired a 3rd shot, missed, pulled the knife from her belt and slashed wildly as it got close. The blade tore across its arm. The creature howled in fury. But then it stopped, staggered back. Smoke curled from the wound. It looked down at the cut, then at her. Recognition flashed in its eyes. Hate, yes, but something else too. Awareness. It turned and ran. Vanished into the trees. June collapsed to her knees, panting, sweat pouring down her face. Her body ached. Her side was bruised from where she'd hit the rocks, but she was alive. Barely. She limped back to the trailer, every step a battle. Blood from her shoulder soaked through her shirt. Her ankle felt twisted. She knew it was just the beginning. That thing wasn't a random beast. It had tracked her, waited. It knew who she was. And worst of all, it was just one of them. As she closed the trailer door behind her and dropped to the floor, she opened Samson's journal one more time. This time she flipped to the back, to a page marked with a dried smear of blood. There were 3 names, 3 addresses. One of them was less than 5 miles away, and next to it, written in trembling letters, "He helped me hunt once. Now he doesn't answer the door." June stared at the page, pulse rising. Whoever this person was, he might be the only one left who knew how to kill the thing that killed her grandfather. She grabbed her keys. It was time to knock. The name on the journal read, Virgil Dean. June had never heard of him. But his address, a small plot off Highway 61 in a forgotten bend of the Mississippi River, was real. Her grandfather had underlined it 3 times and scribbled next to it, "If I'm gone, start here." She arrived just before dawn. The house was a crumbling 2-story off a gravel road, half swallowed by vines and years of disrepair. The roof sagged. The porch light was broken, and every window was blacked out with thick blankets. No mailbox, no cars in the driveway. But the grass had been recently cut. Someone still lived there. June parked a few feet from the porch and knocked twice. Nothing? She knocked again, louder this time, hand gripping the knife in her boot. Still nothing. She turned to leave, and the door opened behind her. An old man stood in the frame, wiry, shirtless despite the chill, his body lined with scars that looked surgical. A pistol hung loosely in his right hand, pointed straight at her chest. "You're Samson's granddaughter," he said. Not a question. June didn't flinch. "How do you know?" "He said you had your mother's face, but your father's eyes. He showed me a picture once." Virgil lowered the gun, stepped aside. "Get in." "Before you get followed." Inside, the house smelled of dust, gun oil, and wood smoke. The walls were bare, the windows sealed with plywood from the inside. Every corner had a weapon, machetes, crossbows, hunting rifles. A rusted suit of armor stood in one corner, repurposed with welded spikes. "You were in the journal," June said, handing it to him. Virgil flipped through the pages with reverence, like touching the dead. When he got to the back, his finger stopped at his own name. "I told him to burn this thing. Too many ghosts in here," he muttered. "Didn't expect him to go before me." "He's dead." Virgil didn't respond, just nodded, slow and heavy. June sat across from him. Her hands were still bandaged from the fight, but her grip was steady. "What is it?" she asked. "The thing in the woods." "You already know," Virgil replied. "I need to hear it." He leaned back in his chair and lit a cigarette. "It's not a werewolf, that's folklore. This thing doesn't follow moon cycles out of curse. It does it because it's ancient. It's instinct. Blood calls it." "What do you mean?" "Your family has a connection. Samson was the last one left who could track them properly. He used to say they weren't monsters. They were infections. Something that lives inside people and waits. It hides, sometimes for years. Then something triggers it. A trauma, a killing, a full moon, and it comes out." June thought of the creature's eyes. The moment it hesitated when she cut it. That flash of understanding in its face. "He knew it was me," she whispered. Virgil nodded. "Then it's marked you. That's not a wound you walk away from." She leaned forward. "How do I kill it?" "Silver slows it, cuts it. But only if you hit the right place, base of the spine, heart, or brain. You miss, you're dead. Worse, you become one." She paused. "You've seen others?" "I've killed 6, Virgil said flatly. "One of them was my brother." That silenced the room. Then he stood up and opened a drawer in the kitchen. Inside were bullets, large hand-poured rounds with silver tips. "You'll need these," he said, "but ammo's not enough. You'll need to bait it, lure it in, and trap it before you shoot. If it's loose, it'll rip you in half before you blink. I already shot it once, twice actually. It bled." Virgil's expression hardened. "Then you got lucky. But next time it won't run. It knows you now. It'll wait until you think it's gone, and then it'll tear through the walls." June pocketed the bullets. "Then I'll be ready." Before she left, Virgil handed her a second journal, his own. It was newer, less worn, but just as detailed. Maps of old attack zones, notes on weather changes before a hunt, lists of suspected names from decades of observations. "Start with page 27, he told her. "That's where it gets personal." She opened it in the car, under the first rays of sun peeking through gray clouds. Page 27 had a photo taped inside, an old grainy image of 4 men in hunting gear. One of them was her grandfather, another was Virgil, a third she didn't recognize, and the fourth, circled in pen, had the caption, "Mason Brigg, last seen 2004, believed turned." June's jaw clenched. She knew that name. Mason Brigg had been the local butcher when she was a kid. He vanished during Hurricane Ivan. Everyone assumed he'd drowned. But now? June checked the address scribbled under the name. He owned land 15 miles north, deep woods, no neighbors, and someone had seen strange lights there last week. She didn't wait. As the car bounced down the old highway, June could feel something deep in her chest shift. Not fear, not quite rage. Something colder, something like resolve. The road to Mason Brigg's old property wasn't paved. It wasn't even on most maps anymore. It cut through dead fields and swampland, past rusted mailboxes and shuttered gas stations. A forgotten stretch of land that even Baton Rouge locals didn't mention unless they were talking about missing persons cases or old ghost stories. June reached the gate just after 6 p.m. It was chained, padlocked, and marked with a "No Trespassing" sign, so faded it looked like it had bled into the wood. She didn't stop. Cut the chain with bolt cutters and drove through, her truck bouncing over the uneven dirt. Briggs' house sat at the center of 40 acres of dying pine and overgrown brush. The structure was 2 stories tall, mostly hidden by trees, its windows boarded and the porch half collapsed. A barn leaned crooked in the back, and next to it, a well with no cover. The place looked abandoned, but her gut screamed otherwise. She cut the engine and stepped out into the thick, humid air. Sweat already clung to her neck. The sky was bruised with gray. Rain would come, but not soon enough. June moved carefully, rifle raised, eyes scanning every window. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air was still. Rotting. A mixture of mildew, copper, and something fouler. Something like meat gone bad. Dust coated every surface, but the floor told a different story. Tracks, muddy boots, claw marks on the tile. Then she saw it. Blood. A trail starting at the hallway and leading toward the basement door. It wasn't old. It was wet. Sticky. Someone was still here. She stepped lightly, moving down the stairs into darkness. The flashlight caught concrete walls smeared with dark streaks. Symbols scratched into the surface. Circles, slashes, spirals. A ritual? No. A message, left by something that couldn't speak any other way. At the bottom of the steps, she saw cages, metal, rusted, each about 4 feet high. Some were empty. One still held bones. Not animal bones. Human, small. A hand still wearing a child's charm bracelet. June's stomach twisted. Behind her, a door creaked open. She turned, rifle up, but too slow. Something hit her from the side. She slammed into the concrete wall, ribs flaring with pain. Her flashlight hit the ground, rolled away. She scrambled up, rifle aimed into the dark, breathing hard. Silence. Then a sound. Not breathing, not footsteps, scraping. From behind the far cage, a figure rose. At first, it looked like a man. Broad shoulders, ragged jeans soaked in blood. But the shape twisted as it moved, arms elongating, spine hunching, muscles swelling beneath the skin like boiling tar. The eyes were human, but only barely. "Mason," she said aloud. It stopped, tilted its head, then lunged. She fired. Once. Twice. The second shot hit, and the creature staggered. Smoke rose from its side where the silver burned through. It screamed, and it didn't fall. June backed up the stairs, reloading as fast as she could. It followed, limbs tearing into the walls, claws ripping drywall and support beams like paper. She turned and sprinted into the living room, dove behind an overturned table just as the beast smashed through the basement door. It was bigger now, changed fully. No trace of the man remained. The face stretched into a snout, the teeth too long for its mouth. It didn't run. It stalked, as if enjoying the fear. June waited for it to get close, then fired point blank into its left shoulder. The shot blew open flesh, splintered bone, but it kept coming. She pulled the knife, slashed upward as it swiped, caught its chest. More smoke, more blood. It grabbed her by the arm and threw her against the wall. Her head hit something hard. Stars burst behind her eyes. The creature pounced and then froze. A sound echoed outside. A bell. June didn't know why, but the beast hesitated. Its head turned toward the window. She took the chance, grabbed a shard of silver-plated glass from the broken cabinet, and shoved it into the creature's throat. It howled, stumbled backward, tearing at the wound. June grabbed her rifle, aimed at the head, fired. The round struck just above the eye. The skull cracked. Blood sprayed. It dropped, twitched, then stilled. Smoke drifted from the body. The shape shifted, muscles collapsing inward. The beast shrank back into a man. Naked, burned, mutilated. Mason Brigg. His eyes were open. June didn't look away. She sat on the floor, bleeding, bones aching, adrenaline fading. The storm outside cracked loud, rain hitting the windows like gravel. She checked his body for anything, found a rusted key, a locket, and a folded paper in his jeans. Inside the paper, a list, names, addresses, 7 total, and 1 circled in red. Noah Cade, Sheriff's Department, East Baton Rouge Parish. She exhaled slowly. The sheriff was one of them. The storm hadn't stopped by morning. Baton Rouge was soaked, streets flooded, power lines down in some neighborhoods. News stations blamed it on a freak squall. Something about Gulf moisture and unstable pressure systems. But June knew better. The rain came after blood. She studied the list again. 7 names. 4 crossed out. 2 marked with question marks. 1 circled in red. Noah Cade, Sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish. She remembered him from town meetings. Big guy, thick accent, always wore mirrored sunglasses, even indoors. He was popular, calm, confident, reassuring. The kind of man people trusted. Her stomach turned. If Mason Brigg was one of them, and Cade knew, or worse, was one, she couldn't go to the station. She needed to catch him off duty, somewhere alone. It took hours to track his home address. A small house off Plank Road, surrounded by pine trees, almost invisible from the highway. June parked a quarter-mile away and moved on foot, rifle slung over her back, pistol at her hip, her coat soaked through from the rain. The sky was still gray, the air thick with humidity. She reached the house just before sunset. The front door was open. Something inside her froze. No movement, no sounds. She stepped inside. The living room was empty, but it wasn't untouched. The floor was littered with broken furniture, splinters, claw marks on the drywall. On the kitchen counter, a single shell casing. Silver. He'd fought and lost. June moved deeper into the house, heart thudding. She opened the basement door. Paused. A smell hit her. Meat, sweat, decay. She flicked on her flashlight and descended. Cade's body was at the bottom of the stairs, or what was left of it. The chest had been opened, ribcage cracked wide like wings, heart missing. His face was frozen in horror, jaw snapped sideways, eyes open and blood-filled. One hand still clutched a knife made of silver and bone. He hadn't turned. He'd been hunting them. June backed away slowly. Her foot hit something. A recorder. She picked it up, pressed play. This is Cade. If anyone finds this, know that they're inside now. Not all of them look like monsters. Some pass as human. Been doing it for years. I killed 3. There's more. I think Brigg turned in 04. Disappeared after a hunt. Never confirmed. The audio cut out with a wet squelch and static. June stood in silence. He'd known. He'd fought. And they'd killed him. Which meant someone else had the list. And if they found Cade before her, they'd be hunting everyone connected to that journal. She checked the names again. Only one wasn't crossed out or marked. Darrell Keene, truck stop, exit 177, I-10. She didn't wait. June drove for nearly an hour, pushing her rusted pickup through flooded back roads and pitch-black stretches of freeway. She reached the truck stop just after midnight. The parking lot was half full. 18-wheelers lined up like sleeping metal beasts. The neon lights flickered over puddles and asphalt, casting everything in a sick yellow glow. She walked inside, past tired waitresses and dead-eyed travelers. The cashier barely glanced at her. She scanned the booths one by one until she saw him. Corner table, Older man, built like a bulldog, hands scarred, nose broken at least twice. He looked up as she approached, didn't smile. "You're Calloway's granddaughter," he said. June sat down. "How do you all know that?" "Your grandfather used to talk. Not much, but enough." She slid the list across the table. "You're the last one left." Darryl looked down. Not for long. June's stomach sank. "What do you mean?" He sighed, reached under the table, and set a duffel bag on the seat. Unzipped it. Inside, silver blades, a sawed-off shotgun, flares. "They're organizing. Packs now. Not like before. There's hierarchy. Patterns. They're evolving." "Since when?" "Past 5 years. Your granddad and I figured it started in the swamps around 2009. First sightings, but we missed it. Thought it was isolated. It wasn't." "Then why are they hunting us?" "Because we know how to kill them." June sat back, the air feeling heavier. "They got Brig, and Cade, and my grandfather." Darryl nodded slowly. "Then it's just us now." Suddenly the lights in the diner flickered. All at once, everyone stopped moving. Silence swallowed the room, and then a scream. "Outside!" June and Darryl stood at the same time. She drew her pistol. He grabbed the bag. Together they moved toward the door. The parking lot was chaos. One of the truckers lay on the ground, throat torn open. Another screamed as something dragged him beneath a trailer. Blood sprayed across the pavement. Movement, fast, blurred. Shapes darting between shadows. Then one of them came into view. It stood atop a truck cab, crouched like an animal, but far too large. 8 feet tall, shoulders wide, arms long and curled with muscle. Its skin was dark, stretched thin over visible ribs. The face, wolfish, but with human eyes, gleaming under the neon light. June raised her gun. Darryl shouted, "Down!" They dove as the beast leapt. It landed with a crack, metal buckling beneath its weight. Then it was on them. June fired into its leg. Darryl swung the shotgun up and fired again. The blast tore into the beast's side, but it didn't fall. It roared, swiped, and sent Darryl crashing into a concrete post. June rolled under a truck, heart pounding, blood in her mouth. The creature sniffed the air and turned toward her. She fired again, hitting its jaw. It recoiled, screeched, and disappeared into the shadows. Gone. She crawled to Darryl. His side was ripped open, blood soaking through his jacket. "Can you move?" "Doesn't matter," he grunted, coughing blood. "They were waiting for us." "How many?" He laughed bitterly. "More than 2. Then his eyes rolled back. He stopped breathing. June sat there, rain pouring again, blood on her hands. 3 were dead. Only she remained, and the pack knew her name. June drove through the night without stopping. Her hands were still stained with Darryl's blood. The windows of the truck were fogged, the air inside thick with heat and death. Her ears still rang from the gunshots. Her mind spun with one question. How many of them were out there? The list was meaningless now. Everyone was dead. Everyone except her. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove back to Sampson's trailer, just outside Baton Rouge. The place hadn't changed. Porch lights still broken, crosses still nailed to the windows. The silence was heavier now. She entered slowly, rifle in hand, checking each room. Empty. Safe. For now. She sat at the kitchen table and opened both journals, Sampson's and Virgil's. She flipped through the pages until her fingers stopped on one name, one that had appeared in both books, scribbled in the margins, never explained. Rylan Greaves. No notes, no locations. Just a sentence beneath it in Sampson's jagged handwriting. The blood starts with him. She didn't recognize the name. She called every contact she could think of. Old teachers, local historians, even a retired deputy who once helped Sampson on a hunt. No one had heard of Ryland Greaves, until she called a woman named Marlene Foskey, a librarian from the East Baton Rouge Parish Records Office. "You said Ryland Greaves?" the woman asked. Her voice dropped. "Hold on." A minute passed. Then, "That name shows up on property deeds back in the 1860s. Same land your grandfather owned. Same lot. Same bloodline." June gripped the phone tighter. "Wait. What are you saying?" "Your land was first registered to Ryland Greaves in 1861. It's changed names 3 times, all within the same family, including your grandfather's. I'm sorry, miss, but Ryland Greaves was your great-great-grandfather." June sat frozen. "Do you have any photos?" she asked. Marlene hesitated. "There's one. Black and white. 1864. I'll scan it to your email." A few minutes later, June opened the photo on her laptop. She stared at it for a long time. It was a man standing in front of a log cabin, tall, broad, face sharp and pale, eyes too intense for the grainy image. Behind him stood 3 other men, and something half hidden in the shadows. A shape? Large, unnatural, like it was watching them from inside the house. She zoomed in, and there it was, the eyes. She recognized them. Same eyes as the creature from the truck stop. June's breath hitched. She leaned back in her chair, mind reeling. This wasn't just a hunt. This wasn't just survival. It was family. Her blood carried the curse. That's why they hadn't killed her. That's why the creature had hesitated in the woods. Why Mason hadn't ripped her apart when he had the chance. Why the pack kept circling, but not striking. They were waiting for her to turn. She dropped the photo, stormed into Sampson's shed. She smashed open a locked trunk he'd always kept shut. Inside were letters, maps, relics wrapped in old fabric. One envelope was sealed with red wax, her name written on it. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a letter. "June, if you're reading this, then I've failed. Our family carries something old. Ryland brought it back from the war. Some say he made a deal in blood. Others say it's in our bones. But the truth is, I don't know how it started. I just know I've spent my life keeping it buried, and it's waking up again. You may feel it, the strength, the rage, the dreams. But listen to me. You are not them. You have a choice. Kill them before it's too late. Before you stop recognizing yourself. Burn my body if you find it. Don't bury me. Don't let them take me. Your grandfather, Sampson." June's chest tightened. Her fingers shook. The dream she'd been having for weeks, of running through the woods, of blood on her hands, of tasting raw flesh, wasn't just trauma. It was the curse. She was next. Unless she ended it, she packed everything, journals, maps, letters. Every weapon she had. Loaded the truck with fuel cans, silver ammunition, torches. There was only one thing left to do. Find the pack. And wipe them out before she joined them. She checked the maps again. One location was circled in Virgil's notes. Bayou des Allemands, a stretch of swamp west of New Orleans, isolated, lawless, forgotten by the government. Old rumors said that families there hadn't left in over a century. Some called it a ghost town. Others said it was worse. It was the only place left where the pack could hide. And if the blood started with Ryland Greaves, it had to end where it began. June drove through the night, alone, headlights cutting through thick fog and flooded roads. Her pulse beat with dread, but also with something stronger, not fear, purpose. She wasn't hunting just for revenge anymore. She was hunting to keep herself human. Bayou des Allemands wasn't on GPS. It was one of those places that people pretended didn't exist, a stretch of sinking marshland and rotting homes built on stilts, long since abandoned to the mud and silence. Locals whispered about cults, animal mutilations, lights in the water. No one went in without a reason, and no one came back without scars. June arrived just before sundown. The road ended in water. She ditched the truck, packed only what she could carry: the rifle, the silver rounds, a silver-lined hatchet, salt grenades made from modified mason jars. Around her neck, Samson's dog tags. At her waist, the blade Virgil gave her, forged from melted coins and filed into a crescent edge. She moved by boat, poling through the bayou's still waters. Every tree leaned like it wanted to speak. The smell was unbearable. Rot, algae, something else, something copper. Beneath the water, bones floated. Not fish, human. She found the first shack around 8 p.m. A collapsed structure built on stilts, half swallowed by mud. A fire burned in front of it, but no one tended it. Blood stained the wooden deck. Fresh. She didn't stop. The second structure was intact. Candles lit the windows. A radio played static from inside. June climbed the rickety steps slowly. The door creaked open. Inside, a room filled with old photographs nailed to the wall. All of them black and white. Families, soldiers, children, each one with the eyes scratched out. She turned and saw them. 3 figures standing in the far corner. Still, silent, breathing slow. They hadn't moved until she entered. Then they stepped forward. The first was a woman. Tall, blonde, her eyes glowing yellow. The second, a hunched man, his mouth twitching with a smile too wide. The third was already shifting, bones popping, muscles stretching beneath the skin like worms under flesh. June raised the rifle. They charged. She shot the first one in the chest. The woman flew backward, crashing through a window in a spray of blood and smoke. The second lunged at her, claws out, but June ducked, swung the hatchet and buried it in his spine. He dropped like a sack of meat, twitching violently on the floor. The third creature hit her full force. They rolled across the room, smashing through furniture. June grunted, stabbed with a knife, slicing its neck. It roared in her face, fangs dripping. She kneed it in the stomach, shoved the barrel of the rifle under its jaw, and fired. The head burst. Blood painted the ceiling. She stumbled back, chest heaving. 2 bodies twitched on the floor. The third was gone. She checked her wounds. A deep gash across her left forearm, another along her ribs. She wrapped them quickly, fingers trembling. Outside, the howling started. Not one, dozens. The moon rose, full, blood red, massive in the sky like an open wound. The air trembled. Water in the bayou rippled. The forest groaned. They were coming. She ran, through the trees, past half-sunken homes, deeper into the bayou. The howls followed. Feet thundered behind her, branches snapped, water splashed. She turned and threw one of the salt grenades, a blast of light and smoke. Screams erupted behind her. She didn't stop, reached a clearing. An old chapel stood at its center, sagging and blackened by mold. A bell tower rose above it, cracked but still standing. This was it, the den. She stepped inside. The pews were gone, bones lined the floor, symbols carved into the walls pulsed with energy. In the center stood a man in a tattered coat, arms folded, watching her. He was tall, pale, eyes black as oil. "June," he said, "you've come home." Her blood went cold. "Who are you?" He smiled. "You know." She did. Rylan Greaves, the source. The root, the first. "You brought this here," she said. I am this, he replied, and so are you. I'm nothing like you. He stepped forward slowly. But you will be. The blood doesn't lie. It remembers. Every generation, every hunt. You survived because your body is waking up. You've already felt it. The strength, the clarity, the hunger. She raised the gun. Don't! She fired. The shot hit him in the chest. He didn't fall. He pulled the bullet out with 2 fingers and dropped it on the ground. Smoke rose from his skin, but he grinned through it. I was born under the first red moon, he whispered. You think silver is enough? From behind, the pack entered the chapel. 10 of them. 15. Shifting, snarling, ready. June backed toward the altar, hands shaking, bleeding, outnumbered. Why not kill me? She asked. Ryland stepped closer. Because we need you. I'll never join you. Then we'll take what's left when you're gone. And then they charged. They came at her like a storm, claws first, teeth flashing, limbs shifting mid-charge. June didn't wait. She pulled the second salt grenade from her belt and threw it at the altar. The blast lit the chapel like a lightning strike. 3 of the creatures screamed, blinded, their flesh smoking. June moved fast, slipping between 2 pews, rifle raised. She fired once. A silver round punched clean through a wolf's throat. It collapsed, twitching. Another leapt from the left. She sidestepped, drove her blade deep into its side. Smoke poured from the wound. She twisted hard, then yanked free. The beast dropped, gasping. Her shoulder burned. Blood ran down her side. She was slower now. Too slow. One of them caught her from behind. Its claws sank into her back. She slammed her elbow into its ribs, then rolled, pulling a flare from her belt and jamming it into its mouth. It ignited. The creature burst into flames. The others paused. Ryland still stood at the altar, untouched, watching like a conductor before the final note. You're dying, June, he said. Your blood's already changing. You feel it, don't you? She gritted her teeth, stumbling. Her vision blurred. Her muscles twitched with strength that wasn't hers. The air stung her lungs, but her hearing was sharper, her heartbeat louder. He was right. She was turning. June pulled the last shell from her pouch, the one Samson marked with the letters RG, the promise. She loaded it into the rifle. Ryland saw it and frowned, just for a second. That was enough. She charged. The remaining wolves lunged, but she didn't stop. She fired once, hitting one square in the jaw, then vaulted over a pew and landed hard at the altar's base. Ryland reached for her. She fired. The round hit him directly in the chest. He staggered. Smoke poured from his skin. His coat burned. He dropped to one knee, but he didn't fall. He looked up, smiling through the pain. You're one of us. No, June said. She pulled the blade from her belt and drove it under his chin, straight through his skull. The scream that followed wasn't human. It wasn't even animal. The walls shook. The candles exploded. Every wolf in the room convulsed, howling in agony. Then silence. Ryland's body crumbled, flesh blackening, bones cracking, until nothing remained but ash and a blood-soaked coat. The others collapsed, dead, burning. The curse had a root, and she had cut it. June stood, shaking, her body screaming in pain. Blood coated her arms, her face, the blade in her hand. The rifle hung limp at her side. Her vision swam, but she didn't fall. The chapel burned behind her as she walked out into the marsh. By morning, the fire had consumed everything. The structure, the den, the bodies. No one came to investigate. The town wouldn't ask questions. They never did. She drove back to Baton Rouge with no headlights, her reflection in the windshield looking less like her and more like something ancient. Her eyes had changed, a little brighter, a little sharper, but her mind was still her own. For now. Back at the trailer, she packed her gear into a storage unit. She buried the journals in the woods, sealed in a steel box with salt and silver, just in case someone else needed them someday. She sold the truck, bought a new one, took only what she could carry, and left. Some say they've seen her in the swamps around Huma. Others say she passed through Memphis last month, checking coroner reports. A bar owner in Shreveport swore a woman matching her description asked about cattle mutilations. No one knows where she sleeps, or if she sleeps at all. Only one thing is certain: where the blood moon rises. She follows. She's not just hunting them now. She's keeping what's inside her from waking up. And if you hear something moving outside your house at night, something heavy, breathing slow, waiting for the right moment, don't look out the window. And if someone knocks at your door asking if you've heard howling in the woods, let her in, because the hunter still walks, and the blood still calls. June's final stand in the Louisiana swamps is a savage reminder that some monsters are born, but others are made through blood and vengeance. The rise of the new hunter has only begun, and what's buried in her blood may yet awaken again. Like this video if you felt the weight of her war. Comment below. Would you stand and fight, or run if the moon turned red? Share this with someone who still believes legends are just stories, because some curses carry a last name. And if you're wise enough to prepare for what hunts in the shadows, subscribe to Mr. Midnight Horror and turn on the bell, so the darkness never finds you alone.